So you're looking for some creative ways that you can use to teach your toddler Bible stories. You want your child to know God's word, you want them to love Jesus, and you want the word to stick. So today I'm going to give you some creative ways that you can use. There are certain learning styles that we want to be aware of, because if you understand what your child's learning style is, you're going to be able to reach them. It's not going to be like Charlie Brown's womp, 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 womp. We don't want that. We don't want it going in one ear and out the other. We want to be able to reach our child where they are, and understanding their learning style is going to help you do that. So we're going to dive into them here. I'm going to explain them to you, and then I'm going to give you some practical examples in case you want to get started today. And really, all you need is a little bit of creativity. And of course, you want God's word. So I do recommend having a kid-friendly Bible, something like this. This one is tried and true for me. Like, I have worked with kids for many, many years, and this has been around. I think it was copywritten in 2005. So I've been using this for a while, and it is tried and true. The Bible stories are really good. They're comprehensible to little children. The colors and the illustrations are beautiful. So might want to get something like this. And I have something for you at the end of this video, so make sure you stick around because it's going to help you as well. You want to make sure that you have a Bible, and then you're going to use these intelligences to help you identify what's going to work for your kid. So let's get right into it. So there are 8 learning styles. These are ways that children, people, honestly, learn best, but we're focusing on kids. But understand that this applies to you as well. So I was a classroom teacher for many years, over a decade. And when I was in college to be a teacher, I remember learning about multiple intelligences. It was a book written by Howard Gardner, and it was talking about how everyone has different intelligences, different ways that they are intelligent. And I remember that stuck with me. And when I graduated from college, I took it with me into the classroom, and I used it to help me reach my students in different ways, because every kid is different. Every person is different, and they learn differently. And when you can figure out what their learning style is, then it's going to be easier for you to help them to retain and remember the information that you want them to learn. Usually I will call it a learning style, but in Howard Gardner's book, he calls it multiple intelligences. I think for the sake of this video, we're going to go with smarts. So there's a woman named Kathy Koch, and she has a book called The 8 Smarts. And her book is very similar to the multiple intelligences that I shared with you that I read years ago, except hers is biblically based and is for parents who are teaching their children about God and raising their kids up in the Lord. So you might want to check that out. So we're going to call them the smarts just because it's way more easy to understand. Okay, there are 8 of them. The first one is word smart. Word smart, or linguistic intelligence, is how I learned it when I was in school. Word smart means that they think in words. We're thinking about your child now. Word smart means they're thinking in words. They enjoy reading. They enjoy writing. They enjoy storytelling. They enjoy speaking. They learn best through language, stories, books, writing. All of these are a word smart person's wheelhouse. They love it. That's me. I love reading. I love writing. I love thinking in words, right? That is word smart. If you have a child who is word smart, then when you're teaching them, you want to make sure you're utilizing these ways to help them understand it. So let me give you a practical example. So let's say we're reading the Bible story. The Bible story for today is David and Goliath. So we're reading David and Goliath, and our child is word smart. So maybe you tell the story. You read the story to them, you tell the story, and then you have them retell the story in their own words. I do this with my child because she is word smart. You can have multiple smarts, right? You can be smart in more than one way. So one of hers is word smart. One of mine is word smart. So here, let's say we read David and Goliath, and you can say, hey, can you tell me the story of David and Goliath? Like, what happened? Tell me what you remember. And that would work great for that kid. You could bump it up a notch. And I do this. I mentioned this in my previous video. I like to use these little people, and these little people I'll give to her, and I'll say, okay, can you retell the story? And I'll have her use these little people to act it out and use her words to explain to me the story. And this works really well for her. She remembers it because she is word smart. That's one of her smarts. The next one is the second smart is logic smart. So this is a logical, mathematical learning style. It's a logic smart. With this child, they are thinking in reasoning. thinking. They think in patterns and problem solving. They love to figure things out step by step. Okay, so if you have a mathematical, logical child, then you might want to have a different type of conversation. So you still always read the Bible story, talk about the Bible story. So we got David and Goliath, and then maybe you compare the sizes of David and Goliath. That's more mathematical. Maybe you get a tape measure, or maybe you use straws and put them on the floor for measurement, or cubes, or whatever you have, and say, okay, this is how tall David was. And you show them, this is how, you might want to say big, this is how big David was, this is how big Goliath was. Wow, which one was bigger, right? And so that's more mathematical. The next one is picture smart. Picture smart is more of like your spatial. Picture smart means that your child loves to draw, they love to paint, they love to create and see pictures, right? Like comic strips, might love comic style books, picture books. Now, this is going to be pretty common with children, but not all children love to draw. Not all children love to paint. I think it's assumed, but I've definitely had students where they weren't feeling it. and that's when you know, like, okay, that's okay, because that's just not their smart. They just don't like that. But if your child likes to draw and paint and do all the things, that's another way that you can tie in the Bible story, right? So you've taught the Bible story, you reviewed it, and I would review the story over and over and over again. Right now, with what I'm doing with my children, we're doing the same story for a week, and just each day I review it and pull out different details, and we focus on different things, and we discuss it in different ways. And we might, read it this day and look at some visuals another day and look at pictures and do different activities. So that way they're getting the story different ways. And you can definitely use what we're talking about for that. So have your child paint, or have your child draw David facing Goliath, or have them make a comic strip. You can draw a comic strip again as they get older, right? If you have like a 4 or 5-year-old, draw a comic strip or print out a comic strip type of style paper and then have them draw in those little boxes. You can do this again, various different ways, but the point is to have them draw or paint the story. All right. The fourth smart is body smart. Body smart is probably one, for whatever reason, just really stood out to me when I was learning about these. It's a kinesthetic is what we call it. Kinesthetic, or body smart. That means that the child loves to move. It is movement based. They like to run and play and just be active, right? And so with this one, you can take your kid outside and have them act out the battle with safe props. I actually mentioned this in the previous video. You can act it out. Take them outside. Let them run and play. Let them act out the story. Have, designate a big tree and let that be Goliath, and say, okay, hey, let's go collect some small stones. Let's see if we can collect some rocks. And you can just, continue to remind them of the story while you're going through it. Okay, and so David, he went to collect 5 stones. Go collect 5 stones. Do you have your 5 stones? And just walk them through that story, or have them retell the story as they're going to get the things, right? And then you can have them safely demonstrate the Bible story. You can have them take the little rock and throw it at the tree and explain what is happening. That is a kinesthetic or body smart type of activity, to have them actually engage their body and their muscles in the learning. Number 5 is music smart. Music smart is a musical intelligence. I think about my husband, he is totally this, but honestly, my son, I'm even seeing this in him as well. Music is how they learn. It's how they explain things, right? So they think in rhythms and rhymes and melodies. They learn best by singing and beats and that whole thing. If your kid is music smart, then maybe you want to create a simple song for them, or a chant that retells the story of David, or a certain aspect of the story of David. Or maybe you want to focus on the character trait, a character development skill, and you create a song based on that. If you want to teach about bravery or whatever it is, this really helps. Songs help with memory verses as well. This is something that I use with my kiddos. Like I said, my son is so musical, even at 1 year old. It's pretty amazing. And so songs really work with him. He doesn't have all the vocabulary yet because he's just 1, but he's singing a song about the months of the year, or the days of the week, or a memory verse. So all of these things, if your child is musical, these songs, these chants, this melody that you provide for them is really going to help it stick. The next one is people smart. This is an interpersonal skill. So people smart, they learn best when they're thinking with others. They're thinking about others. They understand people's feelings. They enjoy working in groups. And so you have people like this. Your child might be like this. And so if you have an interpersonal smarty pants over there, then you want to try some role play. So maybe role play David and Goliath and King Saul and the Israelites and discuss how each person might have felt. You can make this if you have more than one child and invite everybody to participate in this activity. Your interpersonal kid is going to really enjoy something like that because they're working with people. That's one to keep in mind. You can bring other people into this. This child is most likely outgoing. They enjoy being with other people. So utilize that to your advantage. Even as a play date, you have somebody coming over or you're meeting somebody, other kids where they get to play. You can bring in the Bible stories and allow them to do these things together. The next one is self-smart. So this is an intrapersonal learning style. This means that is within yourself, thinking deeply about your feelings, your ideas, your goals. You like reflecting and journaling in quiet time. This is also me. I love these things. Okay, so that is self-smart. For a self-smart child, and we're still talking about teaching God's word. So you're still using God's word with a self-smart child, then maybe have them reflect in a journal. When have I felt small, but God helped me do something big? Now, of course, you can modify this for a very little one and have them draw a picture, right? They're not going to be writing, but you can have them draw a picture, or you can have them just thinking about their feelings. How did you feel when you learned that Goliath was so big? How does that make you feel? Thinking about how they feel as they're reading this story. You can even pay attention to their little facial expressions. Especially if you really get into the story. I notice this with my daughter. I can really see her eyes are wide and she's like really into it when I'm telling her a story. So you can talk about those feelings as well. Like, wow, I see that you look surprised. Why do you feel surprised? That kind of thing. Really helping them to think about how they're feeling internally. The last one is nature smart. So this is the 8th smart. It's naturalistic. Nature. This child loves the natural world. They love nature and animals and plants and going outside. So you want to make sure their activities are outside. And, like I said, you can go outside to find the smooth stones that David had. Well, not the exact ones, right? But go ahead and find some smooth stones and pay attention to the weather and talk about those types of components of the story, the natural aspects of the story. Maybe talk about what the ground was like, what the ground felt like, talking about like, okay, we have grass in our backyard, but what other types of, maybe there was sand or whatever. Okay, so those are the 8 learning styles, the 8 smarts, right? So those 8 smarts, think about where your child is. Again, they can have more than one, and they most likely will, just as you do. And so pull those out and say, okay, my child is, or my children, because if you're doing lessons like I am for both of my kids, so I'm going to do a variety of these things. I'm going to do a word smart activity where we can read and write and, tell stories and listen to stories. But I'm also going to do musical because I know my son enjoys music. We're going to pull in some songs and, use those songs and beats and things like that. Create music while we're doing these activities. We can also pull in kinesthetic because a lot of times that works for kids is kinesthetic. Have them moving and doing different things. So notice what works for you and your children and your family, and then tie these in as you're teaching God's word, because that way they're going to learn it better. It's going to stick. They're going to remember it, just like we've talked about in previous videos. If you haven't checked it out, go ahead and check it out. Now, like I said, I do have something for you. I mentioned this Bible is a recommendation that I have for you. If you are looking for resources and books, good books that are written for Christian mamas who are looking to raise Jesus-loving toddlers, Jesus-loving children. You're into discipleship. You're into teaching God's word. You're into having a Christ-centered home. I created a book list for you because, like I said, I'm word smart and I love to read. And so I created a list of really good book recommendations that are going to not only feed you and your soul and your spirit, but they're going to help you on your motherhood journey as you are raising littles. It is completely free. All you have to do is click the link below and you can get your instant download. And remember, mama, you are not just raising a toddler, you are shaping a soul. So keep going because God is with you. Bye for now.